My name is Clara, and Harrow, Ohio is the kind of town where everyone knows your business, whether you like it or not. I clawed my way out of nothing, turning a small lingerie passion project into a multi-store empire. Intimate designs became my identity, my everything. I was good at it, damn good. The kind of good that felt lonely. Then Liam walked into my digital life. A perfectly tailored suit and a smile that could melt glaciers staring back at me from a friend request. He was a lawyer, naturally. Sharp. Intimidating. I clicked accept like a moth to a flame. His messages were a welcome distraction from spreadsheets and silk. He was witty, charming, and made me laugh, really laugh, after brutal 16-hour days. We bantered about everything, from bad pickup lines to the absurdity of celebrity gossip. Ever heard this one, "Are you a magician?" Because whenever I look at you, everyone else disappears, he messaged one night. Bet you hear that one in your line of work? I quipped back. Oh, for sure. Top of the cringe chart. My comeback? Are you a photographer? Because I really want to leave this shoot. He laughed, or rather typed haha, but it felt real. It felt like connection. After weeks of online flirtation, he suggested coffee. A real-life meeting. Butterflies took flight in my stomach. I'd meticulously curated my online presence, but meeting him face-to-face felt like stepping out from behind a curtain. Our first date was at The Daily Grind, my favorite hole-in-the-wall coffee shop. He was already there, buried in a newspaper. When he looked up, the image on his profile didn't do him justice. His eyes were even sharper, his smile even warmer. Wow, you actually look like your pictures. That's a rarity in this city, I said, trying to mask my nervousness. Well, thanks. I think you're not so bad yourself, he replied, his lawyer vibe instantly softening. We talked for hours that day. About my business, his ambition, our dreams, and our fears. He actually listened. I felt seen, understood in a way I hadn't experienced before. Liam didn't do anything by halves. A year into our whirlwind romance, he proposed. Closing up shop late one night, he appeared, silhouetted by the streetlights, a small velvet box in his outstretched hand. Clara, he began, his breath misting in the cold air. He looked genuinely nervous. We've been doing great, you and me. I think it's time we made this a permanent deal. I froze, the keys to the store still clutched in my hand. Are you saying what I think you're saying? His lopsided grin, the one that always made my heart skip a beat, emerged. Yeah, I am. Marry me, Clara. Let's not play around anymore. I want you as my partner for good. My heart hammered against my ribs. Marriage. Was I ready? Looking into his earnest eyes, it felt right. Yes, I breathed. Yes, I'll marry you. But the moment hung in the air, sweet but incomplete. Liam's expression shifted, turning serious. There's something else, though. Some legal stuff we need to talk about. A prenup. The words slammed into me like a fist. A prenup? Really? Liam, is that necessary? I asked, the joy of the proposal already tainted. He rushed to explain, taking my hands in his to stop them from trembling. Listen, it's not that I don't trust you, Clara. It's just practical, especially with me being a lawyer. I've seen too many messy splits. It's going to protect both of us. What kind of protection are we talking about here? I asked, my voice a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Liam pulled out papers from his briefcase. It's straightforward. If either of us cheats, the cheater loses their assets to the other. Simple and fair. You know I wouldn't cheat on you, Liam, I said. The words a promise and a plea. This is just a safety net, he insisted. I took a deep breath, trying to reconcile the romantic proposal with this cold, calculated contract. It wasn't how I'd imagined my engagement. I looked down at the papers, then back up at his face, searching for sincerity. All right, I said slowly. I'll think about it, but let me be clear, Liam. I'm not planning to ever give you a reason to use this against me. He looked relieved. That's all I'm asking for. We went out to celebrate that night. Despite the unsettling conversation, the evening was perfect. The restaurant was intimate, the food exquisite, and Liam was attentive, charming, and made me forget about the legalities, at least for a few hours. Walking back to the car under a canopy of stars, Liam stopped and pulled me close. You know I love you, right? No piece of paper is going to change that. I nodded, resting my head against his chest. I know, Liam. I love you too. Just, let's make sure this prenup thing doesn't mess us up, okay? He kissed the top of my head. It won't, I promise. And that was it. A few days later, after running it by my own lawyer, I signed the prenup. It felt bizarre, signing a document that detailed the end of a marriage before ours had even begun. But life's a gamble, and I was all in. I just hoped my bet on Liam was a winning one. We were the envy of everyone we knew, always laughing, always touching, always whispering secrets at parties. But a few months into our marriage, something shifted. A subtle change, a chill that settled between us. It wasn't something I could immediately define, but it was there, gnawing at the edges of my happiness. The real trouble started a few weeks later. We were shopping, and I was browsing perfumes in a boutique. I chatted with the sales associate, a friendly guy, about different scents. When we left the store, Liam exploded. "Who was that?" he barked, the words laced with venom. I was taken aback. The sales associate? I was just asking him about the perfumes. It seemed like you were really into him. Liam shot back, his eyes hard and accusing. I stopped walking, staring at him in disbelief. I was talking about perfumes, Liam. What's gotten into you? He scoffed, shaking his head. Nothing. Forget it. Let's just go home. But it didn't stop there. Anytime I interacted with another man, Liam would sulk, make snide comments, or simply retreat into a stony silence. He became distant at home too, burying himself in his laptop or phone, leaving me to eat dinner alone most nights. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I found him in his study, staring blankly at a spreadsheet. Liam, we need to talk, I said, standing in the doorway. About us. About how you've been acting lately. I walked over and closed the laptop in front of him. You've been distant, and any time I interact with another guy, you act like I've committed some crime. He rubbed his temples, sighing heavily. Clara, you don't understand the pressure I'm under at work. And when I see you laughing and chatting with other men, it gets to me, okay? Sometimes I feel like you don't respect our relationship enough to keep your distance. We stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken accusations. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him see that his insecurities were suffocating us. But then, a new element entered the equation: rumors. Whispers from mutual friends that Liam had been telling people I was a flirt, that I charmed other men whenever he turned his back. You've been talking about me behind my back? I confronted him, my voice shaking with anger. Telling people I flirt with other guys? He looked away, shame flickering across his face. Look, Clara, it's not like that. I might have said something here or there, but it's only because I see how they look at you. How you? Stop, I cut him off, my anger boiling over. I don't believe this. You have no right to spread lies about me. You're supposed to be my partner, Liam, not my biggest critic. After that argument, the tension thickened. The love we once shared felt like a distant memory. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home, constantly monitoring my words and actions, afraid to trigger another outburst. Then, one morning, a note appeared on the kitchen counter. Liam's handwriting, usually so precise, looked rushed and uneven. My heart pounded as I picked it up. Clara, let's try to start over. Meet me at the Grandview Hotel, room 204 at 8:00 p.m. tonight. Let's put the past behind us and move forward. I stared at the note, a flicker of hope igniting within me. Maybe this was his way of reaching out, of trying to salvage what was left of our marriage. The day crawled by. Work was a blur. I couldn't focus on customer orders or inventory. My mind kept drifting back to the note, to what the evening might bring. Could we really start over? Could we rebuild the trust that had been so carelessly eroded? By the time I closed the shop and headed to the hotel, I was a bundle of nerves. When I arrived at the Grand View, my palms were sweating. I checked my reflection in the car mirror, smoothed down my hair, and dabbed on a bit of lipstick, not too much. I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard. Room 204 was on the second floor. The hallway was quiet, just the soft hum of the air conditioning. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Then, with a hesitant hand, I turned the doorknob. It was unlocked. The room was dimly lit by a bedside lamp, casting long shadows across the bed. An open bottle of wine sat on the table, 2 glasses beside it, and a small plate of fruit slices. "But no, Liam." "Liam?" I called out, stepping inside, letting the door click shut behind me. "Are you here?" Silence. Just the soft whir of the air conditioner. I thought about leaving, but then decided to wait. I poured myself a glass of wine, the red liquid swirling in the glass. "Just 1 glass," I muttered to myself to calm the nerves. I took a sip. The wine was rich, fruity, and a little too sweet for my taste. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. The wine was starting to make my head a bit fuzzy. Or was it my nerves? I lay back, just to rest my eyes for a moment. The room spun gently, and then everything went black. When I woke up, it was dark outside. I tried to sit up, but my head was pounding, and my thoughts were fragmented and hazy. My phone was on the nightstand. I grabbed it, the light from the screen blindingly bright in the dim room. I checked the time. It was past midnight. Panic clawed at my chest. I tried to remember what happened, how I ended up lying there, but it was like grasping at smoke. My memory of the evening was a jumbled mess of anxieties and expectations. Then, with a jolt, I realized something was terribly wrong. I was not dressed. I was lying there naked, vulnerable, and utterly confused. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog in my brain. I had to get out of there. I scrambled for my clothes, pulling them on with shaking hands. As I dressed, the realization of my circumstances began to sink in, and the horror of what had potentially happened washed over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been violated, that I'd had something precious taken from me without my consent. I called Liam, my fingers trembling as I dialed his number. The phone rang, then his voice, cold and distant, answered. "Clara? What's up?" "Liam, where are you?" "Why didn't you come to the hotel?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Hotel? What are you talking about, Clara? Are you drunk? Have you lost your mind? I'm at the Grand View, like you told me. Why did you ask me to come here if you weren't going to show up?" My voice rose in anger and confusion. "Clara, I don't know what sick game you're playing, but I didn't write any note. I've been home all night. You're out of control. I even thought about calling the police." He hung up, leaving me reeling in disbelief. Driving home from that disastrous night at the hotel, my mind was in turmoil. Liam's cold, dismissive words replayed over and over in my head. What was happening? It felt like I was being sucked into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. As I pulled into the driveway, the familiar sight of our home brought no comfort, only a knot of dread in my stomach. I stepped inside, and the tension hit me like a wave. Liam was pacing the living room, his face twisted in anger. As soon as he saw me, he exploded. "There you are! The wandering wife returns," he yelled, his voice dripping with scorn. "Liam, please, we need to talk. Something very wrong happened tonight," I pleaded, my voice shaky but desperate to make him understand. But he wasn't listening. Instead, he slammed a stack of photos onto the table. "Explain these, then," he shouted. I picked up the photos, my hands trembling. They showed me in a hotel room, in bed with a man I had never seen before. My heart sank. "Liam, I don't know who this is. I swear I've never seen this man before. Something happened to me tonight. Something I can't explain." He laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that sent shivers down my spine. A monstrous mistake, or just your monstrous behavior? Marrying you was the real mistake. Tears pricked my eyes, but I fought them back, needing to stay strong, to stay clear-headed. I didn't do this, Liam. You have to believe me. But he wasn't done. Believe you? Why should I? You're a liar and a cheat, and I'll make sure you don't get a cent from me. I'm going to court, and I will take everything from you, as per our agreement. He spat out before grabbing his suitcase, already packed, and heading for the door. With a final glare, he slammed the door behind him, leaving me alone in the echoing silence of the house. I collapsed onto the couch, my body shaking. The pain in my head was relentless, throbbing with an intensity that made it hard to think. But it was more than just a headache. It felt like my brain was shrouded in fog, my memories of the night blurred and inconsistent. That's when it hit me, the wine. I had only had one glass, but the dizziness and the blackout didn't make sense. It was too extreme, too sudden. I grabbed my phone and dialed my friend Lisa, a nurse, hoping she could shed some light on my symptoms. Lisa, something's not right. I had a glass of wine, and then everything went black. I woke up hours later, and now Liam has these photos. It doesn't add up, I explained hurriedly, my words tumbling over each other. There was a pause on the other end, as Lisa digested my words. Clara, it sounds like you might have been drugged. You need to get to a hospital or a lab and get tested right now. Tell them what happened, especially about the wine and your symptoms. The drive to the lab was a blur. My thoughts raced as I tried to piece everything together. At the lab, I explained the situation to the technician, who nodded solemnly and took several vials of blood. A couple of days after my visit to the hotel, a letter arrived with a heavy thud on my doorstep. It was from Liam. My hand shook as I tore it open, my worst fears confirmed in the cold, formal language of the legal notice. Liam was suing me for infidelity, aiming to strip me of everything I owned based on our prenuptial agreement. The trial was set for 1 month from now. I called my lawyer, Paul, immediately. His voice was a small comfort amid the chaos. Clara, come to my office. We need to strategize. I drove to Paul's office, my mind racing with every possible scenario except the one where I came out unscathed. As I pulled into the parking lot, my eyes caught a familiar figure, Liam, walking alongside a young man, the same man from the photos he had used to frame me. Without thinking, I reached for my phone and started recording. I caught them exchanging an envelope, the young man tucking it quickly into his jacket. My heart pounded as I realized the significance of what I might have just captured. At Paul's office, I showed him the video. His eyebrows shot up as he watched the exchange. This is good, Clara. Very suspicious. I think it's time we brought in a private investigator. Paul's friend, a seasoned private investigator named Jack, took the case. He moved quickly, tailing the young actor and digging into his background. A few days later, Jack called us into the office with news. I've spoken to the kid, Jack started, his expression serious. He's a bit of an actor, down on his luck. Said your husband hired him to play a part. The part of your lover. He also confessed that your husband planned everything, even the drugged wine. As we were talking, my phone pinged with an email. My blood test results. I opened the attachment, my breath catching as I read the findings. Positive for a potent sedative. Just as Jack had said. I passed my phone to Paul, who read the results and looked up, his eyes hardening with resolve. This is it, Clara. This is what we need. With this evidence, we can not only defend you, but also turn the tables on Liam. Paul advised keeping everything under wraps until the court date. Let's not tip him off. We'll hit him with this in court. Give him the surprise of his life. 1 week had passed since the hotel debacle, and I was back in the familiar confines of my lingerie store, trying to keep my mind off the upcoming court date. It was a regular afternoon until Liam walked in, a woman on his arm. Clara, meet Layla, my bride-to-be, he announced with a pride that didn't reach his eyes. Layla looked young, too young perhaps to understand the type of man she was dealing with. She glanced at me with a mixture of curiosity and judgment. Liam wasted no time stirring up trouble. Take a good look around, Clara. Soon enough, all this will be mine. His arm swept across the expanse of my store with theatrical grandeur, a smirk playing on his lips. Layla's eyes followed his gesture, her look hardening with more conviction. I wanted to reach out, to warn her, but I remembered Paul's strict instructions to keep quiet until the hearing. All I could do was smile thinly and respond with as much dignity as I could muster. We'll see what the judge has to say about that, Liam. The day of the court session arrived all too quickly. The courtroom was austere, the air thick with anticipation. Liam, ever the lawyer, chose to represent himself. He stood, adjusting his tie, a clear show of self-assurance as he prepared to deliver his opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen, Liam began, his voice steady and clear, today you will see the true colors of a woman who not only broke the vows of marriage, but sought to destroy the sanctity of our home with her deceit. As you will see from these photos, he continued, gesturing to the evidence displayed on the screen behind him, my wife, Clara, was not the faithful partner she promised to be. The photos from the hotel room flashed up, eliciting murmurs from the courtroom. For months, I lived in torment, suspecting her infidelities, and finally, as these pictures show, my worst fears were confirmed. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. He walked closer to where I sat, his eyes locked on mine. Clara here would have you believe she's a victim, an innocent caught in circumstances beyond her control. His tone was scathing, his words rehearsed, but effective. But I tell you, she is not a victim. She is a perpetrator, a destroyer of our union. As he spoke, I could see the calculated pauses, the measured glances at the judge, the way he laid out each sentence with the precision of a seasoned attorney. The evidence is clear, undeniable. Clara's actions have caused irreparable damage, not just to our marriage, but to the very fabric of trust that binds any relationship. Liam concluded his speech, crescendoing in a dramatic plea for justice. My lawyer, Paul, rose to address the court, his briefcase full of the evidence that would clear my name. He had a calm demeanor. Your Honor, Paul began, his voice steady and commanding, today we not only defend Clara's honor but also reveal a pattern of deceit perpetrated by her husband, Liam. He motioned to the back of the courtroom, and the actor who Liam had hired walked in, his presence causing a stir among the spectators. Paul asked him to share his involvement. The young man looked nervously around before speaking. I was hired to act a part. I thought it was just a prank, he admitted, his voice shaky. I didn't realize the seriousness of what was being orchestrated. Paul nodded gravely, then presented the blood test results to the court. These results show that Clara was incapacitated against her will, drugged by substances she had no knowledge of consuming. The courtroom murmured as the implications sank in. Furthermore, Paul continued, his tone hardening, this is not the first time Mr. Liam has employed such tactics. He laid out evidence of Liam's previous marriages, detailing how similar patterns had led to his unjust enrichment at the expense of his former wives. As Paul concluded his arguments, the weight of the evidence was palpable. We ask not only for the dismissal of the fraudulent claims made against Clara, but also for just compensation for the ordeal she has endured. The judge nodded, taking everything in before delivering her verdict. After careful consideration of the evidence presented, I find in favor of Clara. Relief washed over me, tears pricking my eyes, not just from the victory, but from the vindication. Furthermore, the judge added, the court awards Miss S. Clark damages in the amount of $400,000. Liam's face was ashen, his future crumbling before him. His fiancée, Layla, present in the courtroom, hurried out only to return briefly to whisper a thank you to me for exposing the truth before leaving him for good. The news of the trial spread like wildfire, the details sensational enough to hit the headlines. Liam's professional reputation was irrevocably damaged. He was stripped of his license to practice law. The revelations prompted his ex-wives to file lawsuits against him, uncovering a trail of deceit that left him financially and socially bankrupt. As I closed up shop one evening, the glow of the sunset casting long shadows on the floor, I reflected on the journey. The battle had been hard fought, marked by moments of despair and indignity. But ultimately, it was a testament to resilience and justice. I had lost my faith in love, perhaps permanently, but I had rediscovered my faith in myself. I was a survivor, a fighter, and I would not let Liam's betrayal define me. I would rebuild, I would thrive, and I would never again allow someone to manipulate and control me. The price of betrayal was high, but it was a price I was willing to pay for my freedom. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal cleanup and media attention. I granted a few interviews, carefully controlling the narrative, emphasizing the resilience of women and the importance of fighting for truth. The support I received was overwhelming. Cards and letters poured in from strangers, women sharing their own stories of betrayal and empowerment. It was a strange, bittersweet validation. The money from the lawsuit was a life changer. I paid off the remaining debt on my stores, invested wisely, and even started a foundation to help women entrepreneurs who had been victims of abuse. It felt good to use the money for something meaningful, to turn my pain into purpose. The whispers in Harrow eventually faded. People moved on, scandals died down, and life, as it always does, went back to its predictable rhythm. But I was changed. The naive, trusting woman who had fallen for Liam's charm was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more cautious, and infinitely more self-reliant. I threw myself back into my business, revamping the stores, introducing new lines, and expanding into online sales. Intimate Designs became more successful than ever, a testament to my hard work and the fierce determination that had been forged in the crucible of betrayal. One afternoon, a woman walked into my flagship store. I recognized her instantly. Layla, Liam's former fiancée. She looked different, less polished, more real. "Clara?" she asked tentatively, her voice soft. "Layla, right?" I replied, my tone neutral. Can I talk to you for a minute?" she asked, her eyes pleading. I hesitated. What could she possibly want? But curiosity and perhaps a flicker of empathy won out. "Sure. Let's go to my office." In the privacy of my office, Layla sat down, twisting her hands in her lap. I wanted to thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank me?" I asked, surprised. "For exposing Liam, for showing me what he really was. I was so blinded by his charm, by his promises of a perfect life. I would have been his next victim." "I'm glad I could help," I said, my voice softening. "You deserve better than that." "I know," she said, a hint of steel entering her voice. "I'm starting over, going back to school, pursuing my own dreams. I'm not going to let him ruin my life." We talked for a while longer about our experiences with Liam, about the pain of betrayal, and about the long road to healing. I was surprised by the connection I felt with her, a shared understanding that transcended our initial animosity. As she was leaving, Layla turned back to me. "You know," she said, "for a while I hated you. I thought you were the reason everything fell apart. But now, I see that you were the only one who could have saved me." I smiled, a genuine smile that reached my eyes. "We all need saving sometimes," I said. Years passed. Intimate Designs continued to thrive, and I expanded my philanthropic efforts, focusing on providing legal and financial assistance to women escaping abusive relationships. I became a speaker, sharing my story at conferences and workshops, hoping to inspire other women to find their strength. I had dates, of course, but I was cautious, guarded. The vulnerability I had once embraced felt dangerous, a liability. I built walls around my heart, protecting myself from further pain. Then, one day, I met Daniel. He wasn't a lawyer, or a businessman, or anyone particularly impressive on paper. He was a carpenter, a man who worked with his hands, creating beautiful things from raw materials. He was kind, gentle, and patient. He didn't try to impress me with his wealth or his intelligence. He simply listened with genuine interest and compassion. We started slowly, cautiously. Dinners, walks in the park, quiet conversations over coffee. He never pressured me, never pushed me to open up before I was ready. He respected my boundaries, my fears, and my need for space. One evening, we were sitting by a bonfire on the beach, the waves crashing gently against the shore. Daniel turned to me, his eyes filled with warmth. "I know you've been hurt," he said softly. "I know it's hard for you to trust, but I want you to know that I'm not Liam. I would never do anything to hurt you." I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of deception, but all I saw was honesty, sincerity, and a deep, unwavering respect. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He took my hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "I know, but you don't have to be. I'll be here every step of the way. You can take all the time you need." Over the next few months, I slowly, painstakingly, started to dismantle the walls I had built around my heart. I allowed myself to be vulnerable again, to trust, to love. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, and times when I wanted to run and hide. But Daniel was patient, supportive, and unwavering in his love for me. 1 year after that bonfire on the beach, Daniel took me back to the same spot. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, he got down on one knee. "Clara," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I love you more than words can say. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down my face. It wasn't the grand, extravagant proposal I had once dreamed of, but it was perfect. It was real, honest, and filled with a love that was built on trust and respect. "Yes," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." We had a small, intimate wedding, surrounded by our closest friends and family. Layla was there, of course, as one of my bridesmaids. As I walked down the aisle, I saw the faces of the women I had helped through my foundation, their eyes filled with hope and gratitude. It was a powerful reminder of how far I had come, and how much I had to be thankful for. Life with Daniel was peaceful, fulfilling, and filled with a quiet joy I had never known before. We built a life together, a life based on mutual respect, honesty, and unwavering support. We traveled, we laughed, we cried, and we faced life's challenges together, hand in hand. Liam, on the other hand, faded into obscurity. He tried to rebuild his life, but his reputation was irreparably tarnished. He moved from town to town, taking odd jobs, always haunted by the shadow of his past. I never thought about him much anymore. He was a ghost, a reminder of a painful chapter in my life, but a chapter that had ultimately made me stronger. One day, years later, I received a letter. The return address was a small, anonymous town. I hesitated before opening it, a knot forming in my stomach. The letter was from Liam. His handwriting was shaky and uneven, barely legible. "Clara, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. What I did to you was unforgivable, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I've lost everything. My career, my reputation, my freedom. I'm a broken man. I don't expect you to understand, but I wanted you to know that I finally understand the pain I caused you. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Liam." I stared at the letter, my heart heavy with a mixture of emotions, anger, sadness, and a flicker of pity. I thought about the man I had once loved, the man who had promised me forever, and the man who had tried to destroy me. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and closed it. I didn't know if I could ever truly forgive him, but I knew that I had moved on. I had built a new life, a life filled with love, purpose, and joy. And that was all that mattered. The scars of betrayal would always be there, a reminder of the pain I had endured, but they were also a reminder of my strength, my resilience, and my unwavering determination to fight for what was right. My life had been redefined by betrayal, but it had also been redefined by love, by hope, and by the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found. And that light, I knew, would continue to guide me on my journey, illuminating the path ahead. Years melted into decades. Daniel and I built a full life filled with travel, quiet evenings by the fireplace, and the joy of watching our friends' families grow. I continued to pour my energy into intimate designs, mentoring young women who dreamt of owning their own businesses, and expanding the foundation to support even more survivors of abuse. One cool autumn afternoon, while reviewing designs for a new line of lingerie, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Hesitantly, I answered. "Clara?" a raspy voice inquired. The voice was instantly familiar, sending a shiver down my spine. It was Paul, my lawyer from so long ago. "Paul? Is that you? What's going on?" I asked, my heart rate quickening. "Clara, I have some news. Liam passed away a few days ago." The news struck me with surprising force. Despite everything, a part of me, a small, dormant part, had never fully let go of the past. "Oh," I said, my voice barely audible. I'm sorry to hear that. I thought you should know," Paul said. "There were some loose ends. He left behind a small estate, and in his will, he requested that a portion of it be donated to your foundation." I was stunned. Liam, the man who had tried to steal everything from me, wanted to donate to my foundation? The irony was almost unbearable. "He said he wanted to make amends, in whatever way he could," Paul continued. "It wasn't much, but it was something." I don't know what to say," I stammered. "You don't have to say anything, Clara. Just thought you deserved to know." We ended the call, and I sat in silence for a long time, staring out the window at the changing leaves. Liam was gone. The chapter was finally closed. I thought about his life, the choices he had made, the pain he had caused, and the remorse he had ultimately felt. I thought about the letter he had sent years ago, the shaky handwriting, the desperate plea for forgiveness. I realized that holding on to anger and resentment only poisoned my own soul. It didn't change the past. It didn't bring back the innocence I had lost, and it certainly didn't bring me any peace. That night, I talked to Daniel about everything. About Liam's death, about the donation to my foundation, and about the weight of the past that I had been carrying for so long. Daniel listened patiently, his eyes filled with understanding and compassion. When I was finished, he took my hand and held it tight. "It's okay to let go, Clara," he said softly. "You've earned it. You've built a beautiful life, a life filled with love and purpose. Don't let the past hold you back any longer." And as I looked into his eyes, I knew he was right. It was time to let go. It was time to forgive, not for Liam's sake, but for my own. The next day, I called Paul and instructed him to accept the donation from Liam's estate. I decided to use the money to create a new program within the foundation, a program specifically designed to help men who were struggling with anger and control issues. I hoped that by addressing the root causes of abuse, I could help prevent future tragedies. The program was a success. It helped countless men to confront their demons, to learn healthy coping mechanisms, and to build more respectful and fulfilling relationships. Years later, as I sat on the porch of our retirement home, watching the sunset over the rolling hills, I reflected on my life. It had been a long and winding road, filled with both joy and sorrow, love and betrayal. But I had learned from my mistakes, I had grown from my pain, and I had emerged stronger and wiser. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked, his voice soft and familiar. I smiled and took his hand. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," I said. "Me too," he replied, squeezing my hand. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the lawn, I felt a sense of peace that I had never known before. I had faced my demons, I had conquered my fears, and I had built a life that was truly my own. The price of betrayal had been high, but the rewards of resilience and forgiveness were immeasurable. My legacy wouldn't be defined by the pain I had endured, but by the strength I had found, the love I had shared, and the difference I had made in the lives of others. And that, I knew, was a legacy worth leaving behind. A few weeks later, I received an invitation to a gala, a fundraising event for a local charity. I usually shied away from such affairs, preferring the quiet comfort of my home and garden, but this invitation was different. It was from Layla. Curiosity and a lingering sense of connection compelled me to accept. The night of the gala arrived, and I dressed carefully, choosing a simple but elegant gown that made me feel confident and comfortable. As I entered the ballroom, I was immediately struck by the opulence of the setting, the glittering chandeliers, and the sea of elegantly dressed guests. I spotted Layla across the room, standing by a large floral arrangement. She looked radiant, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "Clara!" she exclaimed, rushing over to greet me. "I'm so glad you could make it. I wouldn't have missed it," I said, smiling. "You look beautiful, Layla." "Thank you," she said, blushing slightly. "I'm so proud of how far I've come." We chatted for a while, catching up on each other's lives. Layla had remarried and was happily raising 2 children. She had also become a passionate advocate for women's rights, using her own experience to help others escape abusive relationships. As the evening progressed, Layla led me to the stage, where she was scheduled to give a speech. As she began to speak, her voice filled with emotion. She talked about her own journey, the pain of betrayal, and the resilience of the human spirit. Then she turned to me, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I want to thank a very special woman, a woman who has been an inspiration to me and to so many others," she said. "Clara, please come up here." I hesitated for a moment, then walked onto the stage, joining Layla in the spotlight. The audience erupted in applause. "Clara," Layla said, her voice trembling slightly, "you showed me that it's possible to overcome even the most devastating experiences. You taught me the importance of forgiveness, not just for others, but for ourselves. And you inspired me to use my pain to make a difference in the world." I looked out at the audience, at the faces of the people I had helped, the people who had supported me, and the people who had believed in me. And I realized that my story wasn't just about betrayal and forgiveness. It was about hope, about healing, and about the power of human connection. As the applause subsided, Layla took my hand and raised it high. "Let's all give Clara a round of applause for her unwavering commitment to justice, her tireless efforts to support women in need, and her remarkable ability to turn tragedy into triumph." The applause was deafening, filling the ballroom with a wave of energy and emotion. As I stood there, hand in hand with Layla, I felt a sense of completion, a sense of peace that I had never thought possible. The circle was complete. The pain of the past had been transformed into a source of strength. The betrayal had been replaced by connection, and the darkness had given way to the light. And as I looked out at the faces in the crowd, I knew that my story, our story, would continue to inspire others for years to come, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. The price of betrayal had been steep, but the legacy of hope, healing, and forgiveness was priceless.